Yo, what's up with y'all? What's up with y'all? Welcome back to Moxy Approved. What's up with y'all, Moxy Mob? Yeah, y'all been really bringing my channel up. We got momentum, and I owe that to y'all. Thank you, Moxy Mob. Please continue to help me out like y'all been helping me out, hitting that like button. Also share with your friends, but please watch this all the way through. That helps me out with the algorithm. But what we talking about? What we talking about? In the news, there's been a certain term in the education world right now that's been going viral over these last couple weeks. It's a term called critical race theory. And what's been happening over this last year, over a dozen states has came out and has banned critical race theory from being taught in classes in high school. They're trying to push out critical race theory from being taught in the American education system. But first, let's not go too far. Let's go back. For those of y'all who don't know, what is critical race theory? But wait. Before I go too far in this video, please do me one small favor. You already know this is your first time here on the channel. Come on, you know what I'm gonna ask you. Please hit that subscribe button. Giving you a second to do it. All right, let's go. The definition of critical race theory, CRT, is an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States who seek to critically examine the law as it intersects with issues of race and to change mainstream liberal approaches to racial justice. Critical race theory examines social, cultural, and legal issues as they relate to race and racism. It also talks about critical race theory originated in the mid-70s in the writings of several black legal scholars, as you see there. It emerged as a movement in the 1980s, reworking the theories of critical legal studies, CLS, with more focus on race. Both critical race theory and critical legal studies are rooted in critical theory, which argues that social problems are influenced and created more by societal structures and cultural assumptions than by individual and psychological factors. Now, that's a lot to break down. In layman terms, it's pretty much the examination and the research and study on how American society affects people that are not white. It also talks about pretty much how the legal system is the gasoline on top of the fire that keeps the differences and keeps the inequality in American society. Now, this stuff is stuff that is based on education that has been unveiled in the last few decades. It's always been there. But ever since the internet has been becoming more popular, the American education system has been opening up the books and teaching us some of the facts that they didn't teach us before. Is it because they want us to know the right information? No. What it was is, as the internet became popular, they knew people in other countries would start talking to us like, wow, wait a minute. You believe this, that, and the fourth? It's all kind of topics I can go into to where we're teaching things here one way in America, but the rest of the world don't see it like that. There's wars that has happened. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. There's major wars that has happened, but here in America, we teach it one way, but the rest of the world, that's not a fact. It's not a fact, but here in America, we teach it as fact. Now, this whole critical race theory, teaching about the inequalities that's been created in American society. There are several states that have been protesting against this being taught in any classroom. Let's take a look at these states. It's Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, and of course, West Virginia. The latest state to add to this list, which is why this is in the news again in the last few days, is Florida. Now, some of y'all that know how to think, is there something that stick out with those states? You know what? For those of y'all who don't know how to think for yourselves, let me tell you, they're all red states. So it's a reason why they don't want this taught in class. Now let's look at this from both sides. Teaching this, there are people that are against this being taught because they're saying that this brings forth the victim mode. And I even hear that a lot online when I'm talking about black activism and stuff like that. People will tell you, oh, you're focused on the victim mode. That is a huge lie. I'm gonna tell you what the victim mode is, because people will try to use the victim mode against people that's trying to get justice. and rightful cause for themselves. They, oh no, you're not a victim. You could do it just like me. This is the thing with victim mode. Victim mode is when you done had 100 jobs, and the majority of these jobs got rid of you for the same reason. But yet you're not looking at yourself as something wrong with the jobs, not you. You don't want to make no change. Or here's another example of victim mode. Victim mode is when your last 6 relationships have all ended the same or very similar, and the person that left you told you why or gave you implications of why they left, and they were all similar reasons. But you don't want to take that into account. The problem is everyone else and not you. That's victim mode. Victim mode is not like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street massacre, when those people lost their land and lost their businesses. And now the lineage, their heirs, are seeing places where their grandfather, their great-grandfather built these businesses and owned this land, and it was taken from them. And now they're going looking at this land, which is true. This is a true story in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're looking at this land where their ancestors owned and rightfully made. They didn't take from anybody else. They started it from the ground and made it themselves. They done built a stadium over these places now, right? And then you can say, oh, once you get your stuff together and get the money, you can buy it back. Why you gotta buy something back that your family worked hard for? Now you have on the other side, you have a lot of white people, not all white people, but you have a lot of white people that come from inheritance, that all the way back from the slavery times, their family was able to gain capital off of the goods of those days, whether it was cotton, whether it was steel, off of other people's labor. And they taught their kids how to use that finance and pass it down generation from generation. All right. Now they don't want this stuff being taught in class because they want everybody to believe that the majority of white people started off with a nickel, didn't have no help. They didn't not give other races a job to give them a job, and they just work hard like everybody else to get where they are. There are some white people that's out there that's like that, but there's a lot of white people that are trust fund babies, that they come from money. Okay, so that's a big reason why they don't want this stuff taught. They don't want these kids knowing that, these white kids knowing that you have a privilege. I heard another argument that it spits in the face of liberalism and democracy. And that's funny because what they don't want to focus on is the elements that critical race theory, like the legal system and stuff like that, the elements that it focus on, that itself is a spit in the face of democracy in itself. Okay, so they giving all these BS reasons on why they don't want to be taught in class when it's really simple. They don't want these kids to grow up seeing America in the true light that it is. These are red states. They're, in another 20, 30 years, they're going to have politicians come out there and replace the Mitch McConnells. Okay, now if you're raising them, teaching them that they were raised with the privilege and stuff like that, it's going to be hard to develop the next Mitch McConnell. So to look at things on the other side, this is not something that you parents out there should expect them to be teaching in class, because they're not going to be teaching this in class, because these red states in particular need this to not be taught in class for their political survival. Let's even talk about how they do red line districting to affect voting and stuff like that. All this is a part of critical race theory. But I will tell you this, and this is specifically for you people of color, parents of color, with your kids. You should be teaching this to your kids anyway, at home, okay? The school system is not equal. We already know that. And there's no reason to get into the debate about that, because I can tell you right now, I can prove to you real fast how the school system can easily be seen as not equal. Finance. They don't teach finance in class. In particular, credit. All right. The most important number that a human, an American, is going to have their whole entire life is your social security number. Credit. And the fact that they're not forcing all high school students to learn about credit, that lets you know that they don't want this to be an equal society. Because that's something you can do right away. That really, I think all kids should be taught about credit. It's the most important number you're going to have your whole life. All right. And yeah, you can say, oh, well, why we don't put that on the parents, for the parent? Public schools. I didn't make that clear at the beginning. We talking about public schools. A lot of these kids in public schools, they come from poverty. And you can't expect parents from poverty to know how to teach their kids about finance, how to get credit, stuff like that, about what LLCs is about. Maybe you can push the LLCs off to college or whatever, but they all should be learning about credit, okay? So you parents out there, You can't expect them to be teaching this in school. You can't. You have to teach this to your kids at home. All right. No different than, and you can say, well, I don't want to teach my kid to be a victim. Hey, that's on you. I don't have no kids, so I can't tell people how to raise their kids. But you can say the same thing about teaching your kid, if you got black kids, teaching your kid how to deal with the cops. You can say, oh, I'm teaching my kid how to be a victim. No, you're teaching your kid how to survive and what's in front of them and what to expect. You can act like it don't exist and have your kid going out there like it don't exist until they run into a cop that's like that. And they got to find out the bad way, or maybe not make it home one night to find out, no, it ain't the same for them. So y'all can't expect them to be teaching this in class, because white people don't like it when they're not seen as the heroes. Okay, that's why you always got the white heroes in the movies. This is something we've already talked about. This ain't nothing, no new information. But it's the same thing in these curriculums. They want to still be seen as the heroes, you know? And the truth of the matter is, they're going to do what they're going to do. You as a parent, those are the things you have to teach your kid. And while you're teaching your kids, teach them some skills. Also teach them coding. I started this channel off telling y'all about coding. Teach your kids coding. But anyways, y'all know how we like to end our videos over here on Moxy Approved, right? With that water. I see y'all here next time on Moxy Approved.